a video about Kinley's delivery and birth and what happened afterwards. So I just thought I would film it now since Kinley is asleep. This is the best I have in my house. So I'm sitting beside the window. There's the stairs. And Kinley is napping upstairs. So I was pregnant for 8 months because Kinley was 5 weeks early. She had some difficulties at birth, well, actually quite a bit of difficulties at birth. Throughout my pregnancy, I did fine. I was healthy and my diabetes was fine and all that jazz. But towards the end, I was under a little bit of stress and I just had a lot of stuff going on in my life. And Kinley was breech and I was worried and I was worried sick. And I just had a lot of stress. And a week before Kinley was born, or maybe about 2 weeks, it was February 24th, I started swelling. I was swelling in my ankles and in my face, and my fingers were swelling really bad, and I thought I had preeclampsia. So I went to the hospital, and they sent me home and said that I'd be fine. It was normal and whatever. And then I got swelling down there in my lady area, and it was horrible. So I went back to the hospital and they said, it's just the yeast infection. So they gave me antibiotics and sent me home. So a couple days passed and it started getting worse. So I went back to the hospital and they were like, oh, well, you got a Bartholin cyst. So they sent me to my OB so my OB could take a better look, and she sent me back to the hospital. And that was the Friday before I had Kinley, and Kinley was born on Tuesday. So they admitted me into the hospital and told me that I'd be staying there until I had a baby. That night I went into surgery to get the cyst removed, and so they had to give me an epidural because they weren't able to give me any other type of pain medication, seeing that I was, 8 months pregnant. And so they gave me the epidural, and I went and I was like half asleep. They gave me a little bit of something so that I was like kind of knocked out. And they did the surgery. And then I woke up not long after in the recovery room. And the next morning I was able to leave, I guess, because they said I was doing better. Meanwhile, I wasn't, and I was puking and I threw up on my way home, and I really didn't want to leave the hospital. I just didn't feel comfortable. But I had the surgery in Chatham, and all in all, I had a bad experience at that hospital. So I went home that day and got relaxed, and I was recovering from my surgery, and I was in a lot of pain, and I had this big old belly on me, and my doctor was telling me that the baby will probably come soon, and to be prepared, and the baby was still breech, so I would have a C-section if she hadn't turned in time. So a couple days passed, and okay, I guess it was a week before I had Kinley. So it must have been like the Wednesday or something that I had the surgery actually. So I think Friday came, and I went back to the OB and I said something is wrong. I mean, I'm leaking water. I don't know what is the problem, but I don't feel comfortable staying at home because I live about half an hour away from the hospital. Sorry, 1 second. Turn my pump off. So she took a look and said, okay, well, you're swelling and baby is under a lot of stress. We're going to readmit you, and this time you're really going to stay in the hospital until you have this baby. So I went to the hospital, and the next couple of days were just a blur because I was in so much pain and I was worried sick, and I just didn't know what was going to happen. So then Monday night, which was March 11th at 9 p.m., or about 8 o'clock p.m., I went down to have an ultrasound of the baby because her movements were slower, and just to take precautions and decide if she was going to be ready to come soon since she was under so much stress. And about 9 p.m. that night, they told us that we were going to have a C-section. And this C-section was going to be an emergency C-section for 9 o'clock the next day. So I updated all my Facebook statuses and texted all the right people and called my parents and just telling everybody. And Chris wasn't even at the hospital at the time when I found out. He was working late that night, I'm pretty sure, or sleeping or something because he was on midnights. So I texted him and then I called him and we talked about it and he said, okay, well, I'm going to try to get a good night's sleep tonight. I'll call him to work and I'll see you in the morning and we'll do this. So the morning came and my mom and my dad came to the hospital and Chris's parents and my grandparents and my brother, and we were all ready for this baby to come. So what happened next was clearly unexpected. Sorry, let me sit back. It's a lot to talk about because it was really emotional for me and it was like a roller coaster of emotions. I had a lot going on. So obviously 9 a.m. came and we went in to have the C-section and that girl went fine and everything was going fine and I had my drugs to make me more comfortable and Kinley was born. But when she was born, she wasn't crying, there was no signs of like life. And they cut the umbilical cord and she still wasn't crying and she wasn't breathing on her own, so they showed me her really quick and then rushed her off and did what they had to do to help her. A couple hours passed and after talking to the doctors and talking to Chris and my parents coming in to see me, I still hadn't saw Kinley yet, but they wheeled her in and I was able to touch her leg and she was in an incubator. And she had all these things hooked up to her and they told me, your daughter is going to be flown by helicopter to another hospital that can help her and has better equipment and 24/7 care over her. So I was pretty upset about that and that was emotional, but I was strong and I told my mom that I wanted her and Chris's mom to go with Kinley or to meet her at the hospital since I couldn't be there because they would not send me with her. So I said goodbye to my mom and Chris said goodbye to his mom and they drove to the hospital that Kinley was going to and they met her there and they stayed with her for the next 4 days. So I just got to see Kinley for a brief few minutes, or I don't know how long it was considering I was all drugged up, but I did get to see her for a few minutes at least, and then she was flown in the helicopter to the other hospital where she'd get better care. So a few days passed and I was still so swollen and they made me walk up and down the halls until my swelling went down and they kept saying, you're not going to be able to go see your daughter and you're not going to be able to get let go of unless the swelling goes down. So I kept walking down, up and down the halls just so I could be released 4 days later. So when I was released, we drove all the way to the hospital first thing, like we left the hospital where I was and we went right to go see Kinley. And that was just so emotional. Her room was at the very end of this very long hallway and I could see it right when I walked in and it was like a 3-minute walk down the hallway and all I could see was an incubator and that's where Kinley was sleeping and where she was. So we walked down the hallway while I was in a wheelchair. Chris pushed me and my mom walked with us, just to kind of be there to be supportive and talk to us and stuff because she had already been like pretty much living there for the last 4 days. So we went down and we saw Kinley for the first time, and I didn't know what to think. I didn't know if she was going to be okay. I didn't know what was wrong. I had so many questions going through my head. I was confused. I just didn't understand. And to this very day, I'm still confused. I don't know. Like, I know that what was wrong with her, like, she was breached and she was under stress and all that, but I just don't understand why my baby. So bonding with her at first was difficult because I had been separated from her for 4 days, and we weren't really able to hold her too much or touch her too much just because she was 5 weeks early. They don't want too much is it called? Like contact, I guess, because I don't know why, whatever. Too much stimulation, I guess. So yeah, our stay in the hospital was good, and I can make another video about that if you guys want, about our stay in the hospital. But she was in the hospital in London for a week, and then she was transferred to the hospital where she was born, and she was there for 4 weeks. So altogether, she was in the hospital for 5 weeks. So she was born March 12th, and she was released from the hospital on April 17th. And she was released with a feeding tube in her nose, and we had to put the milk through her feeding tube until she soon learned how to suck from the bottle. She was just so weak and all that she just didn't know how, I guess, or she just wouldn't. I guess some babies, or most babies that are born early, have a hard time with the reflex because it's the last few weeks of pregnancy where they gain that ability. So yeah, that is about it for Kimmy's delivery. Like I said, I'm gonna probably make another video about her hospital stay and the emotions I went through and how I felt, because there was a lot that went with that as well. So like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks guys. See ya.